All right, in an effort to clear up any confusions or just kind of, lay the pathway towards recording, let's talk about the needs. What do you need to do some basic recording? Let's talk first about a basic home setup, or basically what you have in front of you at your desks at school. You need a microphone, all right? And this is in the context of recording a vocal. Now, it could be a guitar amp, anything that was going to start with a microphone. You can also plug an instrument directly into these boxes, so there's that. But you need a microphone. You also need what's called an audio interface, and the ones that we have at school are called, they're made by a company called Focusrite. These are the Focusrite Solos, and they have one mic preamp, and they also have an instrument preamp. The other thing that the audio interface does is it converts analog signal, so the sound of your vocal or guitar, those vibrations in the air, convert from the analog domain into the digital domain. So these boxes also convert those vibrations captured by a microphone and electrified to zeros and ones of computer code. We need to be able to listen to what we're doing. Now, there are outputs, left and right outputs on the back of these boxes that you could run to some speakers, or like we do at school, because there's 30 of us, you can plug in some headphones and just listen like that. Of course, your interface needs to be connected to a computer that has some digital audio workstation, a DAW software on it, whether it's Pro Tools or Ableton Live or FL Studio or Logic. None of that really matters. So again, basic recording setup is a microphone, a mic preamp or a preamplifier that is digitized, that then gets digitized, so it has to go through an A to D converter. You got to listen, so you got to have something to monitor with, some headphones or speakers, and a computer. Let's take a step into the studio. It gets a bit more complicated as we have some engineers available, so to speak. We need a microphone, same thing. We need a preamplifier. So what does the preamplifier do? We'll get into in a minute. Now, we could bypass this outboard preamp, but because we talk about it at school all the time, let's just say we do bypass it. The microphone goes into our mixer. Now, this mixer has preamps built into it. It's got 16 mic and 16 line level preamps. So we could plug directly into that. Of course, we monitor our recording or anything that we're doing in the studio through speakers. We can plug in some headphones, but typically we don't. We do, but we don't. It needs to go through an analog to digital converter, but in the studio, the analog to digital converter is a separate unit. So again, this box does two things. It is preamplifier for your microphone, but it's also an A to D converter, an analog to digital converter. In the studio, the analog to digital converter is much more complex. It has 16 inputs and outputs. Going back to this one again, this has two inputs, the mic input and the instrument input. So technically there are two inputs, even though they're different types, and it has two outputs for left and right, just for speaker monitoring. This thing has 16 separate outputs so that we could run those to different places. These do not go directly to our speakers. In this instance, our speakers are run from the board. The board is connected to our ins and outs. That is where the conversion from analog to digital is happening. And it's done so that in this instance, we can do 16 at a time. While this can only do 2 at a time, we can do 16 at a time. In fact, we have 2 of these boxes that are daisied together, and we can do 32 channels or tracks at a time. This unit is what's connected to our computer. There is something missing here, which is the PCI card. Technically, it's connected to a PCI card that is inside of the computer. We use our patch bay to bypass the preamps in the board. Talked about that a lot. I really feel that the preamps in the C24 are fairly low quality. They are definitely low gain. So we use outboard preamps. Let's just talk, kind of, this is a basic home recording system. And this is not that advanced, but we can put some prices to this for fun. This microphone, this particular microphone is worth all of this, more than all this put together, not the computer. All right, so this solo is about $100. So you get a mic input, you get an instrument input for $100. You have some headphones. These are $100 headphones, $200. These are probably about $300 or $400, the speakers. In the studio, this preamp is 2 channels. It's got 2 mic inputs, 2 mic preamps, and 2 instrument preamps. About $3,000. The board that does have 16 mic and line level preamps, but also has all this other, integrated stuff with Pro Tools, this is about $10,000. Again, our speakers are nicer than these. And this A to D converter is about $10,000 as well. So, we're looking at what, $15,000 versus $300, $400. We'll talk about the differences and why and the value and decisions around some of that in a bit. Let's talk about the types of microphones. Okay. So what does a microphone do? It takes those vibrations in the air, those sound waves, and it converts it into an electrical signal that does need amplification, but essentially, that electrical signal that we want to record. There are several types of microphones, but the main 2 that we typically talk about are dynamic and condenser. There's also ribbon, there's PZM, there's a variety. But dynamic microphones, they create that electrical signal when the diaphragm vibrates. It's surrounded in copper wire, and that diaphragm vibrates in a magnetic field and creates a very, very low electrical current. A condenser microphone, which are more responsive, meaning they have a wider dynamic range, a wider frequency range. They're going to pick up lower lows and higher highs and everything in between. The diaphragm on a condenser mic needs an electrical charge, 48 volts of electricity, which is referred to as phantom power. All right, so on some preamps, you're going to see a button that says plus 48, or you'll see a button that says phantom. This unit does have a plus 48. It provides phantom power as well. That phantom power comes through the microphone cable, the XLR cable, and it comes from the preamp, and it comes through the mic cable. All right, so 2 main types of microphones. A little bit more on the amplifier. So we have a microphone, we've plugged it into a preamp. What is the preamp doing for us? So we have our interface, our Focusrite, that's got a preamp. We have our board that has 16 preamps. Every mixing board is going to have preamps, whether it's 1, 5, 10, 100. You need a preamp for anything that you want to record, whether it's mics, guitars, a phone, what have you. For our purposes, there's 3 basic types of preamps. There's a mic preamp, an instrument preamp, and a line preamp, line level preamp. They basically do the same thing. They add gain, they add volume, they add amplitude and power. So a mic preamp, a microphone makes the least amount of gain on its own. So once we have kind of created that electrical current, it needs to be brought up to line level in order to record. And to do that, it needs roughly between 30 and 60 decibels of additional gain. That comes from the preamp. An electric instrument, if you're going to plug an electric guitar directly into your interface or into one of these 1/4-inch instrument preamps in our more advanced mic preamps, an electric guitar doesn't need quite as much gain. So it's kind of in the middle, Goldilocks. So mic level is very, very low. An instrument level is kind of in between. And there are line level sources, therefore you need to have line level preamps. Would be something like a synthesizer or an electric piano that has sounds in it and is going to have 1/4-inch outputs that you're going to record directly. Or even your phone going through what you guys call an aux cable, an 1/8-inch cable that would need to be, however you'd plug that in. That's going to be already at line level. It's going to be very, very loud. So the basic rule of thumb, if you took a so once you plug into, if you took a mic and plugged it into a line level signal, a line level preamp, there wouldn't be enough gain coming from the preamp to get it up to somewhere that you could record it. If you put a line level signal into a mic preamp, you're going to be distorting it. So, again, depending what you're starting with, it does matter what preamp you use. So in the board, for example, we have a button that tells the same input, look for the mic. Well, it's not the same input, it's a different input. Look for a mic or look for a line level signal. In these are mic pre's, but they do have high Z or instrument inputs. If you plug into this 1/4-inch input with an electric guitar, you are going to be turning down the gain as if it were to be compared with a microphone. So you plug a microphone into the preamp, you're going to need much more gain than if you plug an instrument into the same preamp. And that's basically the idea. Now, why would we spend a lot more money on less stuff? So again, this unit, the Great River, is 2 preamps. Preamp number 1, microphone and instrument. Preamp number 2, microphone and instrument. About $3,000. This unit has 1 microphone preamp and 1, but you can get one with 2. Let's say it's $200. You get 2 mic inputs and 2 instrument inputs. Same as this thing. Plus you get A to D conversion. And this thing still is 10 times more. 15 times more. There is a quality, whether it's to the tone of how the source is recorded. It is the amount of gain that you can get from the preamp. And certainly there's just a quality to the capture of what each unit brings to what they're doing. And we have different types of preamps. We have the Great River, we have the King, we have the Universal Audio, and they are all slightly different. The Universal Audio actually has tubes in it, so you can kind of get a warmer tone to what it is that you're recording. Nothing wrong with a Focusrite. I use it all the time when I'm recording at home, and then I go into the studio and I re-record parts so that I can get a cleaner and more defined recording. The other thing about it is that you are very limited just to the numbers of inputs. The more inputs you are trying to record, the more sources, you need to have multiple channels of A to D conversion. So if I'm recording a drum kit, I've got a kick drum mic, a snare drum mic, there's 3 toms. I got a mic on each of those. That's 5, 2 overheads, 7, maybe 2 rooms, 9, maybe one microphone on the hi-hat, 10. I could keep going with that. You're not going to be recording 10 inputs at once on a unit like this. As soon as you start to kind of get these all-in-one preamp A to D converters up to 8 channels, you're talking about $1,000 at least. But again, the quality of the preamp and the sound that it is capturing. So the reasons, again, quality of the equipment, but also flexibility and being able to record more than one thing at a time. Now, granted, this is only 2 inputs, so we need to have a whole bunch in order to record a drum kit. This is 4, that's 8, that's 10, and we have another one that has 8. So we do have 18 outboard preamps. We have 16 preamps in the board, so we do have a total, what did I say? 18 and 16, 34 preamps. So we can record up to 34 signals at once. However, we are limited ultimately to our A to D. We only have 32 of these. So we can record 32 sources at once and have a couple mic pre's left over, so to speak. All right.